Hey everyone, so I want to talk in this video about oneness. Oneness, whether it's oneness with God or everyone or all life or the planet. It's at the heart of all of the mystic traditions. It's at the heart of mystic Christianity, which I would argue is the true root of Christianity, but that's another video. Jewish mysticism, all the mystic traditions, and even non-formalized traditions focus on oneness. And oneness doesn't have to be complicated. It's really a feeling that you are not separate from the divine, and a deep realization that if you are not separate from the divine, no one else is. And it can really be an ecstatic realization when you embody this, when you feel this, when you know this is a deep truth, that you are actually sacred. You are not separate from the divine. And everything is divine. And everything is blessed. And everything is for a reason. And everything is beautiful. And you can start seeing the beauty in everything. Even things that might seem broken. So let me reel it back a little. So I first remember experiencing this when I was very young. I had to have been less than 5 because we were living in our first house. And I went outside in the snow. And my dad and I had rolled a big snowball the day before that was going to be the base of a snowman. And I'm not sure what happened, but it wasn't a snowman. It was just this big ball. And I carved like this square seat for myself out of the snowball. And I sat down and I stared up at the canopy of trees. And I felt just such a tremendous sense of peace, of being connected to everything around me. Just that everything was okay and everything was beautiful. It was so deep and so profound that all these years later, I remember it. And I can even see, like, staring up at the trees in my mind. And it was quite a long time ago. And I certainly didn't then go forward and embody it in my life at every moment, but that was my first taste of it. And that happens along the mystic path a lot. People will dip in and dip out of that. There are some people who would just have these profound transformative experiences, awakenings, and then they're just in that state, whether they're enlightened, whatever you want to call it, they're just in that state for the rest of their lives. But many people, and maybe you're one of them, you dip in and dip out of that sense of deep oneness, that sense of deep connection. But the more you can remember that, the more you can consciously create it, whether it's through meditation, or guided meditation, or just taking a walk out in nature and looking at the trees and realizing that they are part of divinity and just thinking how beautiful they are, or looking up at the blue sky and thinking how beautiful it is. This is crazy, but I even do it when I do laundry. I think to myself when I'm taking it out of the dryer sometimes, like, how miraculous is this? That this was dirty laundry like an hour and a half ago, and then it was soaking wet, And then I put it in here and it's like dry in like an hour. If you think about that, that's a pretty miraculous thing. And if you've ever been in a position where you had to line dry things when you didn't want to, or you had a broken dryer or anything like that, you don't take it for granted. I know it's a silly, silly example, but when we are so connected to this oneness, we can find this joy, this ecstasy in these everyday things. And if you remind yourself to look for it throughout the day, you can find joy no matter what your life circumstances are. You can find peace in things. Years ago, not too long ago, my family went through an experience of homelessness. And there were times, too many times, where we really didn't know where we would be sleeping on a particular night. And at some point I realized that instead of being in a state of constant fear and constant worry, if I sort of surrendered and just said, okay, God, wherever I'm meant to sleep tonight, please lead me there. And I will trust in you and it'll be okay. It always was. There were nights that weren't really pleasant. Luckily not that many. It was always okay. That didn't mean it was fun or good. But I was able to connect to that sense of peace, of being connected, of not being alone. Because really the worst thing in life is when we feel totally alone. But if you are connected to that oneness and you don't lose sight of it, or you just remind yourself of it, you know that you're not alone. You can even think of like a phrase that can bring you back to it. Like my personal phrase, when I just want to get myself in the right mindset, is just one with God. I am one with all creation. And it's just like a course correct for me. And it brings me back to that state of everyone is my brother, everyone is my sister. I am one with God, I am one with all life. And I'm okay. And everything is okay. And there are just beautiful things around me. I mean, I know I look like I'm in a totally ordinary room. But this is a house we've been renting since December. And I've been wanting to get my boys into a house for so many years. I've wanted to own a house my whole life, and I will get there, but being in this house and just having the space and a yard for my boys and our rescue dog to run around in, it's such a miracle. It's such a miracle. And I just look at these walls and I'm just like, I'm so blessed to live here. And to have been through what we went through, now to be able to do this, it's incredible. And I'm so blessed. And we all can look around and see the blessings in our everyday lives and see the manifestations of the divine. I wanted to move to North Carolina for quite a long time. My family moved here and I missed them immensely. And I was finally able to, a little over 4 years ago. And I know if you do that timing, it was right before COVID. Great timing, right? but yeah. And now I don't forget it. Like, I look up the sky and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm looking up at the North Carolina sky. Thank you. Thank you. And, you know, sometimes I'll just be driving and I see all the license plates. And I remember when I was up north and I would see a North Carolina license plate and I would just be like, oh God. And it was funny because, you know, you get messages from the divine all the time if you're open to them. In like the year before we moved, every time we would go out apartment hunting up in New Jersey, I would see all these North Carolina license plates. Like sometimes from the moment we were, because we didn't have a car at the time, so from the moment we were pulling out of the car rental place, there would sometimes be a North Carolina license plate going by. It was bizarre. Very bizarre. And stuff like that happens all the time if you have your eyes open, especially if you are aware that you are one with all that is. Because your life gets in this divine flow and you have openness to realizing it. So you see the synchronicities and you see the signs and you see the signals. And when you sense this, it makes surrender easier. And I don't mean surrender like, oh, I give up, it's over. I mean surrender in the sense of, I can't control everything. I can take responsibility for what I can take responsibility for. I can take responsibility for my own thoughts. I can take responsibility for my own actions and decisions and inactions and lack of decisions. But I can't control other people. And I can't control the external world. And when we try to do that, we create a lot of pain for ourselves and a lot of struggle. So instead, if we can surrender, like I did in that car when I didn't know where we'd be sleeping, or I'll give you another example. When I was younger, my brother and I, we were just like best friends. We were so close. And over the years, we grew further apart. There wasn't like a fight or anything like that. It was just we grew further apart. He became busy. He didn't really understand what I was going through when we were homeless, because nobody really can if they're not experiencing it. And we had just become somewhat alienated. And that was very, very painful for me. And after I moved to North Carolina, where he lived, I was certainly able to see him more. But there was still like this lack of the closeness we used to have. And I just kept, trying to figure out how to fix it. And I couldn't. I didn't know what else to do. It wasn't like there was anything wrong to fix. It wasn't like there was a fight and I had to apologize or anything like that. It's just, I wanted my brother back the way it used to be, or at least close to it. And then there was this day where I was thinking about it, and I said, you know what? I can't do this on my own anymore. I surrender this to you, God, and I have trust that you will fix this. Please fix this for me. I don't know how. I can't force this. Please fix it. And I just went into this state of surrender, like, I can't do it. on my own anymore. And in that beautiful divine flow, where we are all one, where we are all connected, about a week or two later, a circumstance occurred. And I just felt, I need to see my brother. I need a hug from him. And I picked up the phone and I called him and I told him. I'm gonna start crying, but and it turned out that at the same time he was going through something very, very painful in his life, and he'd forgotten that he could turn to his big sister. And we drove over to his house, and we went out in the woods on a trail and went for a walk together. And it got my brother back. And we've been so close ever since then. And we just pulled off a surprise 80th birthday party for our mom over the weekend, and I'll be seeing him again next week, and I get lots of hugs, and it's beautiful. And it happened because I surrendered things to God and trusted the divine, and that it's all connected, and there's this beautiful divine flow, and things happen as they're meant to when we stop trying to force them, and when we remember that we are one with everything, and everything that we want, if it's for the highest good, if it's in alignment with the divine plan, it will come to us in the right timing. It doesn't mean just sit there and don't take actions when you need to take actions. But it also means sometimes you have to step back and realize there's nothing you can do but trust and surrender. And realize that you are a divine spark. You are a strand in the fiber of God's being. And as you are, so is every other person on this planet. Everyone is precious, divine, beautiful, even if they're not acting in a beautiful way. You can start seeing that when people have actions that you don't think are right, that's coming from the brokenness within them. It's coming from them not seeing their own light, not seeing their own connection to the divine, having forgotten who they are. And sometimes we can gently remind them of who they are. And sometimes we can't, and they just have to find that out for themselves. Or not. And you can love them. Even if they're at a distance, even if you don't know them. You don't have to like everybody. You don't have to like everything that people do. But you can still love everyone. Because the reality is, in this oneness with God, in this oneness with all life, they're you. You're them. The separateness is just an illusion. I hope this was helpful. One with God. I am one with you and with all creation. and I send you endless love.